Hi, this is Matt Donegan from Challenger Stories. I'm here with Elliot Grove. Elliot, you are the founder and CEO of the Raindance Festival, something that I have huge admiration for. That, as well as the British Independent Film Awards. You must be a busy guy. Tell me how you started Raindance.
Well, just a bit of my origin story, man. I'm a Canadian. I grew up in a farm outside Toronto. My parents were members of the rather weird Protestant sect called Amish, the horse and buggy people. I was always told never ever to go to the movie theater because the devil lived there. I didn't see a movie until I was 16. It was harvest season, hot summer's day. A part broke down on the farm. I'm the kid. I get sent into the local village to get the repair, and it was going to take 3 hours wait. It wasn't worth me turning around, going and coming back. I was 16. I had a few coins in my pocket, and I was wondering what the devil looked like. And there it was, a few doors down from the house of the Lord, the house of the devil. I walked in. They only charged 99 cents back then to see the face of the devil. Now, remember, I had no idea what a movie was. I was just told never ever go there. I walked down this tunnel into a big room, a bit like church, with chairs lined up facing the front. I sit down. It's about 2 o'clock in the afternoon. A couple other people there that hot summer's day. They turned the flippin' lights off. The curtain slowly opened, and the first face of the devil I saw at the age of 16 was Lassie Comes Home. And I cried like a baby. In the end, I rushed up to see, and it was all gone, a twinkling of an eye. People to this day ask me my favorite movie. I always say Lassie Comes Home because without that experience, I'd be tilling the soil somewhere in Northern Ontario.
That is an absolutely fantastic origin story, Elliot, because now you wind forward. How long has Raindance been going now?
We started in 92 doing courses, Festival of 93. So this year's our 33rd annual Raindance Film Festival, and the British Independent Film Awards is 28 years old this December.
Wow. Look, a huge admiration for running the business as long as it's been going, because it's more of a passion than just a business. Let's face it. You guys are very much the cornerstone, the beating heart of the British film industry, and that's one of the reasons why I'm thrilled to speak to you today. I mean, we've spoken before in the past. What you guys do is inspirational. You're providing so much into our culture, and I personally believe that the British film industry, our creative industries in the UK, are some of the greatest in the world, and you guys are right at the heart of it. So tell me why you started Raindance, because you've got a passion in film, but how do you go about starting a film festival?
Well, you see, I moved to London in the mid 80s and fancied myself a property entrepreneur and got caught out in the big crash in 91. I spent a whole year feeling sorry for myself when a wise old man, he died about 10 years ago at the age of 106. He was actually a barber in World War II. And he saw me for a whole year wandering around, moping around. I'd lost everything, feeling sorry for myself. And he said to me one day, as long as you're feeling sorry for yourself, there's not a single doctor in the world that can help you. And that's when I remembered Lassie Comes Home. You see, I've always loved movies. So I just decided then and there, with zero money, zero finance, to start the Raindance Film Festival. And here we are over 3 decades later, still surviving, yes, and some would say thriving, except our bank manager would never use the word thrive with Raindance.
So what thrills me, one of the elements that thrills me about Raindance, and I mentioned earlier on about you guys being a real foundation stone. Some of the interns that have worked in your office have gone on to be fairly successful, haven't they?
Yeah, my first intern, although he rather be called volunteer, was a guy called Edgar Wright. And then about a year later, I met a late teenager, maybe 20. He had told his mom and dad at the age of 16 he wanted to be a filmmaker. And they said, no, no, please, no, doctor, lawyer, podcaster, anything but filmmaker. So to keep mom and dad happy, he went and studied a degree at UCL in English, just up the road from where I am. And he joined the Film Society because they had a cupboard full of free equipment and he started making short films. That's when I met him. He then graduates, gets a dumb job to pay the landlady, stacking shelves at Boots the chemist in Piccadilly. And if any of you in London at Piccadilly, it's still there if you want to pay homage. And he would come to my old office up in Soho Friday night. I give him the key. He would get the free equipment from the film sock, and he would shoot Friday night, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. He went back to Boots. And he did that on consecutive weekends for 9 long, lonely months. Made a film in 1993 dollars, only £4,000 back then, called The Following, which he remade in Los Angeles 18 months later as Memento. I'm talking about Christopher Nolan. And he has really rocked it, has he not?
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, he's a visionary in some ways, a bit like yourself, Elliot.
It's so funny. I last saw him a few years ago, right before COVID, and he said, Elliot, you're doing really well. And I said, Chris, you're doing really well. Anyway, I should reach out to him.
You really should. So, look, you get a lot of big guests coming along to Raindance. Obviously, it's extremely prestigious, very highly regarded, clearly. How many films do you have entered into the Raindance Festival?
Ooh, well, the first year we showed every single one. But this year we were getting something like 16,000 shorts, features, and VR projects. And of all of those, we budgeted for 60 feature films, 10 shorts films programs, and about 20 VR projects. So your chances of getting in are about 1 in 100,
Wow. And how many hours of footage is that?
over 1 million minutes.
1 million minutes. I mean, what a monumental task for you to go through that. And actually, what it says about the festival is that why it clearly matters to filmmakers. So if it matters that much to filmmakers, Heather, what's the commercial model? Because it must be there must be an element that from brands, from sponsors who want to come along, who want to support. But is the business model made up of the sponsorship and then paid tickets, entries? How does it work?
Well, people pay to submit on the grounds that we have to pay people to sift out that how that process works. We have a team of sifters, if you like, and it goes up to the pyramid at the top. It's my wife, actually, head of programming, Suzanne Ballantyne. And then, so that money is a pile. Then there's the box office money, the actual cinema box office money, of course, which is only about 8% of our annual budget of about £600,000. And the rest we look for people like you and companies to either donate through our registered charity, the Independent Film Trust, or sponsor. And sponsorship is unique because I've learned the hard way, having been turned down many times, is that when you have a successful sponsorship arrangement, you're equal partners. So we at Raindance need to find out from the brand what they are trying to do. And we actually go to their website and look at their colors and their messaging. And then we come up with activations that might satisfy their brand values or enhance a new marketing campaign. So, for example, a couple of years ago, we were talking to Samsung. They had the new phone come out. And we put together a really good activation deck showing how people could use their phones to make short films, blah, blah, blah. And then we had to wait till the Q1 results came in. And of course, that phone bombed. So they said no. But we learn and we make valuable connections and understanding the people who work as a brand ambassador or a branding marketing person or PR person have the same problems we have. And if we can help a brand or an individual tell a story that they feel passionate about, and at the moment it's all about social impact and keeping kids off the streets and all that. And very often big companies have some of their corporate responsibility budget to activate that. And we are very cost effective and can do with a pound, which most companies would cost 10.
Okay. So bearing that in mind, what are the challenges of running the business? What's on a day-to-day, so on a week-to-week basis, what's the challenges for Raindance?
Well, I personally have the same HR conflicts. Broke up with my girlfriend, or my wife and I just had a baby, or I've become allergic, whatever. We have all those normal HR things, but it comes down to cash flow. And the problem with Raindance, we've always been overly ambitious and decided to do groundbreaking new stuff and then have to wait for a year or two for other people to catch on. We've always been the innovator, much copied by the major film festivals here in the UK, like the London Film Festival and the Edinburgh Film Festival. When we started doing VR back in 2016, it took them 3 years. And of course, now they're doing it with the big brands. And I don't want to use the word struggle because we're always looking for the innovators, the new kids on the block. Our tagline for 30 plus years has been discover, be discovered. And if you get tired of the Hollywood fair or the big film industry fair, these done in, done out, story after story, all the same, a bit like porridge. And if you want something a bit spicy, something that makes you think, or Matt, as me, your body is 75% fluid. And I would like to think that if you came to a film at Raindance, whatever the film, documentary, feature, whatever, that the emotions caused by you watching a film would cause that fluid in your body to come out through one of your pores.
Okay. Okay.
Your eyes, your mouth, your nose, your ears, whatever. Anyway.
Yeah. Okay. So I like the analogy. That's pretty cool. Uh, so that's the kind of day to day. What about what's been the biggest lessons that you've had in developing Rain Dance?
It's lack of ambition. Sometimes you get worried about the money in the bank that you got payroll this week, and you forget that you actually were thinking of something much bigger. When you sit down and focus on your dreams, somehow the day to day gets sorted out. I don't know how that is. Maybe it's because I grew up on a farm. You can plant the seeds, worried about drought or floods or whatever, but eventually the crop does mature, ready for harvest. And I think keeping in mind the moment of harvest is something that has kept me going all the time, and for that matter, the wonderful team that I work with.
Hmm. Okay. So continuity, keeping things going, keeping things resilient. Okay. What would be the message that you would have for anybody who's stepping into your shoes in the business?
Learn how not to sleep. Well, you know what it's like, Matt, in your background too. You know, we have paid employees that do the 40 or 38-hour weeks and all that. And if something happens when they leave, it doesn't get done for a day or two. And that isn't something that the leader of a business can do. You really are 24/7. I was had lunch last week with someone who used to work for me years ago. He's now managing an $85 million film fund. It's called Headgear. Phil Hunt is his name. He's a wonderful man. And he actually took his wife and went to an elephant sanctuary in Cambodia where he was offline for a whole week. I said, "How did you do that?" He said, "I know the last 2 days had a big deal went down without me and it cost me $200,000. I said, "Well, how are you going to deal with that?" He said, "Do you know what? It doesn't matter because I enjoyed learning the elephants and getting out of the zone. And I've come back hotter than hot, fresher than fresh, ready to kill the next big deal."
Yeah, absolutely. And that's, having that time out, having that space, really, really super important. I couldn't agree with you more. Getting the headspace allows you to strategize, gives you proper focus. Absolutely. So can I ask you about your learnings over the years? So we talked a bit about your experience. What about, are there any sort of books or any things that you would like to share that are really useful that you found over the years?
Well, I am Canadian, and there's a fellow Canadian from Montreal now living in New York by the name of Malcolm Gladwell. I just think he's got such a unique, fresh way of looking at life's challenges and turning them upside down. I particularly like his 10,000 hour theory that you
Yeah,
can get really good at anything if you devote 10,000 hours. And maybe me as a podcast guest, this will count as an hour, and I only got 9,999 left to go because I've never been confident in my podcasting skills as guest.
you do very well. Elliot. You do very well. So Malcolm Gladwell, of course, the Blink is another great one of his books. Thoroughly enjoyed Blink. So there's a great amount of insight in pretty much every one of Malcolm Gladwell's books, and the psychology is fantastic, and I completely agree. In fact, I recently read a book about the All Blacks, the rugby team, and they refer to some of the key learnings from Malcolm Gladwell in there. So
Wow.
Yeah, it really spreads around.
But these learnings from the ancient prophets and the new prophets, I would call Malcolm Gladwell a prophet, they're universal and they work in any business, any situation, private or public. And it's really inspiring.
Yeah, absolutely. So, so Elliot, if can I, one last question for you is so you're walking along the street, just come out of your office in Soho, and you walk along the street and you bump into your 18-year-old self. What do you tell you?
God, 18 years old, I was still wearing the stupid big hat with the beard. Well, I don't grow a beard. I can't. I just I just can't believe what's happened to me. I'm just like spoiled. I just yeah. And but you know what the thing that 18-year-old me knew was the story and the power of parables. Sunday school, all those biblical stories written thousands of years ago when we had plagues, pandemics, and climate change. We had Noah and the ark. And my goal now as a storyteller is to tell the stories and find people who can tell stories that maybe in the next generation or two will be known as parables, enabling the people that you and I know, Matt, the people on the street, how do we process all this craziness out there right now? It's gone mental.
Yeah, it has. Look, you guys, what Raindance does is it's an umbrella for storytelling, isn't it? And storytelling provides context to all the content in the world.
Yeah.
We need
Yeah.
stories, we need parables. We need these stories to keep us functioning. They are the heart of humanity. It's how we communicate. It's how we communicate best, isn't through facts and figures, it's through stories and emotions. So, Elliot, you guys at Raindance are delivering that in spades. Thank
Oh,
you so much for what you guys are doing. Honestly, this is a privilege speaking to you. Raindance Film Festival and the British Independent Film Awards, long may you prosper. Any brands want to get involved, just get in contact with Elliot. He's a fantastic organization. Elliot, thank you so much for your time today.